Hello, everybody. Welcome to Backstage Gaming, a show where we talk about gaming and storytelling and stuff. I'm Dylan.
You just threw me for the biggest fucking loop of my life. I'm Chris. Is it backwards day? Okay. Thank you, Dylan. I wasn't expecting that, but here we are.
Yeah, I was like, I'm gonna be daring today.
Yeah, it's fucking carpe diem, my dude. So yeah, we're here. We're Backstage Gaming, and we're joined by a guest this week. Guest, hi, introduce yourself.
Hello. My name is actual doujinshi character Coop.
I'll never fucking
it's
escape.
so weird hearing it come out of his mouth.
It is weird.
You said that with your human throat. You know, the only one you have.
My mom is going to be so disappointed.
So Coop is one of my oldest friends. We went to high school together. And Coop, tell the fans a little bit about what you do and who you are and why you're here.
Yes. So, like Chris said, I have known him. This is going to sound I was thinking about this earlier, like last night. I've known you for over a decade now.
Yeah, because we started hanging out more in high school, but we met in like 7th grade, 6th grade,
something like that. Yeah. So it's like
getting close to 15 years at this point.
Yeah.
That's wild.
Yeah.
Oh man.
So the old man energy is strong.
Yeah.
Even though we're not old at all. I am a Coop. Right now, when I'm not corporate slave, I do a podcast with Mr. Dylan over here called Dude, You Remember Macross. We talk about old anime, specifically the original Macross series. Some people in the West don't know it. Some people do, because licensing is a bitch and criminals.
Yeah, there's
just motion to move anything that's unpleasant, just, because criminals.
Well, actually, the company that holds the rights, a lot of people think that that company has like a bunch of tax evasion schemes.
Oh, very cool. Love that.
Yeah, so there's actual like weight and validity.
Yeah, and the current chairman he's a convicted felon, especially in Italy, of like tax evasion and money laundering. So
love that.
Yeah,
it's not
great.
Unprecedented.
Not unprecedented. And then other than that, our podcasting, I've just been kind of shit talking on the internet for many, many years and saying weird things in person that Chris or somebody goes, did he really just say that? and then somebody goes, nah, don't worry about it. Coop says shit like that.
It's probably fine.
Yeah, it's all right. So that's me.
And yeah, so we have Coop on. We're gonna take advantage of the unique skill sets and knowledge bases of our guests, by which I mean Coop and Dylan are going to spend the opening half of this episode talking about the Dragon Quest series, which is a game series I've played very small amounts of, which makes it not so great a topic for when it's just me and Dylan. But with Coop here, we're gonna use that as an opportunity to we're gonna take the weights off.
Okay.
And Dylan and Coop are going to talk a little bit about that, and then we're going to transition from some of the interesting things that Dragon Quest does narratively and with the way that they portray character into talking about a game that Dylan and I are very excited about, the new Fire Emblem game, and we're going to talk a little bit about how those games use their characters and make the interactions between character and narrative and as a player, your emotional response to the game. And it'll be a journey. We'll see how it goes. So yeah, I'm gonna sit back largely for the first half. I will interact as I can, and I'll ask questions as things come up that I think might be interesting. But this opening bit is going to be the Dylan and Coop show a little bit.
A sample of Dude You Remember.
Yeah.
So yeah, I guess the way I want to start is Fire Emblem and Dragon Quest are like two very different franchises with very different audiences and mechanics and all of that stuff. I think the one thing that kind of ties it together, for me at least, as a fan of both series, is this idea that you have Final Fantasy. Final Fantasy VII specifically is the RPG that made Japanese role-playing games popular in the West. And the way it did that was it really sold itself as like a movie you can play. So they put a lot of emphasis on the visuals of the cutscenes, the grand stakes, the scale, the scope. Things that, like, you know, they kind of brushed all the strategy and the numbers and the more mechanical aspect of RPGs under the rug. And so that's why I think a lot of people, when they talk about RPGs here in the West, they really like to get into, like, the story, the characters, the arcs, the development.
Yeah.
More so than, like, you know, the nerdy shit that I like it for, the numbers, the number crunching, the mechanics. We'll start with Dragon Quest, because Dragon Quest is actually the biggest Japanese RPG franchise in Japan.
Oh, hell yeah.
And it hasn't really ever caught on as much in the West, and I think part of that is due to the fact that while there are characters in Dragon Quest, and they are delightful, there's not as much of an emphasis placed on character development and melodrama in Dragon Quest that you would expect from a game like Final Fantasy or Persona, or there was a third one in my head, the Tales series. We talked about the Tales series with Christine a while back.
Yeah.
Because really, from what I know, just to be honest, I haven't played... Dylan has more Dragon Quest experience than me, because after the Hose Mad fiasco of 2019, that got...
I'm sorry, what now?
Have you not? Okay, yeah, this is a Smash Twitter thing.
Yeah, so after the hero from Dragon Quest, which is basically one character, but he has the skins of the various main characters from Dragon Quest 11, 8, 4, and 3, announced for Smash, people were pissed. It's like, it's another anime swordsman.
Oh, hey, you know what? That also ties in nicely. Smash players hate Fire Emblem and Dragon Quest.
Yep, pretty wholeheartedly.
Yeah. Pretty accurate.
There's too many sword users in Smash Bros!
There's not enough... So the Hose Mad...
Breath of the Wild is the worst Zelda game.
It's... I
had to put one in there.
Yeah, I respect it.
But so, as a result of... all that, the Hose Mad was just a meme people started throwing around with that song just because people were so mad. But what got me into that part of it was, you see the Japanese fan reactions to it, and it's some of the most wholesome shit you've seen in your life. It's arigato Sakurai, or thank you, or arigato Nintendo, and some loud screaming and like, holy shit, it's a Yoshi. You've seen so much hype over the years. Yeah,
yeah.
Like the last time I felt hype this infectious that actually got to me was when Maximilian first saw that reveal trailer for Final Fantasy VII, the remake, which, by the way, they should just call it Final Fantasy VII and drop the remake, because RET did that, and it was great.
Cleaner.
So I welled up, and so what I ended up doing, before we get to the character part, I ended up buying a 2DS right away with Dragon Quest VII, and I've been building up my arsenal. So 7 is my particular wheelhouse. And going through the story, I have unfortunately forgot the point we were trying to make before.
we needed the lead in. So yeah, we were going to talk about. Well, we can just talk about Dragon Quest VII and its storytelling.
Okay. Yeah. So, like some of the best JRPGs that have hit me, and I know Dylan can speak to this, like there was some Final Fantasy and some Dark Cloud growing up, but never in a specific long stretch. I remember the game as a young Bobo, I got the most into RPG-wise, either it was Kingdom Hearts, but if we're going like strict turn-based, it was probably Final Fantasy X. So... this is my story now. So
that's a joke only for me.
Yep. Ah ha 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 ha. Ah ha ha. Anyway, the big one recently within the last 5 years was Persona 5.
Mm-hmm.
And what I love about that game, and like even before that, because I'm also obsessed with Mega Man, to a slight extent, Mega Man Star Force 2. But what both
those are fun games.
They're good. What those games do well is, and Dragon Quest VII does this as much as well, is it tells very episodic stories that aren't necessarily, there is a bigger plot, but that's kind of not the point in a way.
I've heard the Dragon Quest games, like in terms of storytelling compared to One Piece, And I realize this isn't an anime podcast, but it's a very episodic, like, there is an overarching plot, but that's not the point. The point is kind of, it's the adventures we had along the way.
Yes.
I'm gonna be a huge fucking nerd.
Okay.
Because I love stories like that, and the origin of that kind of storytelling is actually very interesting. It largely comes from, I guess not necessarily the origin, but like that is a style of storytelling that was really popularized in the modern day in early American crime fiction.
Yeah, I can see that.
There's a line in the book The Simple Art of Murder, which was a book by, I can never remember if it was Dashiell Hammett or Raymond Chandler. Raymond Chandler. One of the things that they talk about in it, it's a book about the phenomenon of like American crime fiction and hard-boiled crime fiction. And one of the things that they bring up is that British crime fiction, things like Agatha Christie, it was all very like sanitized. It all happened in like some rich person's house and like someone dies and everyone's like, oh dear. And then it's all about the denouement. It's all about like, here's the end of the main story that we were following. He did it. And now the gentry can be satisfied and life in rich England can continue. American crime fiction is not at all about that. And there's a great line in The Simple Art of Murder where they say that a great American crime novel is one that you would read even if the last page was missing. The goal is not to come to a great conclusion of the mystery. The goal is to come up with a mystery that allows for interesting scenes to happen. And that's something that a lot of, especially RPGs like Dragon Quest that have to last for dozens of hours, have to be. Like, they have to be that kind of story that, like, the individual scenes that you come to along the way are compelling enough on their own to keep you playing, because otherwise, like, boy howdy, that denouement is a really long way away.
Yeah.
It's actually fitting that you mentioned that, because Dragon Quest VII specifically is the longest game in the series. It's about as long as Persona 5. Which I know means very little to our audience, so it's like a little over 100 hours, like 110 hours.
And the 3DS version is considered shorter too, because the original PS1 version had much more complicated puzzles, and they did a lot of quality of life things in the 3DS remake that makes it a little more approachable.
I guess for like context and to kind of justify that choice, for the NES, you had 4 Dragon Quest games. For the Super Nintendo, you had 2 Dragon Quest games, and then a remake of the first 3 Dragon Quest games. For Dragon Quest VII, they were like, alright, you guys are getting 1 Dragon Quest game for this console generation, but it's gonna be as long as, like, 3 Dragon Quest games.
Oh.
Yeah. And the episodic setup for this game, for our listeners who don't know, and Mr. Dreamboat over here. So you are kids on this island. There's fishing village, and right to the north of the island is the kingdom, and your best friend is the prince, Keither.
Keither Sutherland.
No,
Yes.
okay. So this goes even deeper. Before I go back to the plot, his father, the king, his name is Donald. Yeah. And they kind of look like Donald and Kiefer too.
That's incredible.
It's amazing.
That was probably intentional on the localization team's part.
Very
if
intentional.
not, Yuji Horis.
Bless that man. So you are these kids, you're adventuring, and everybody in the island says, oh, there's no other islands. There's no point to go out on a boat and go adventuring. And
we are the only island in the world.
Yes. And you and Keither have been putting together this boat in secret. You don't learn this till later. But this boat in secret to go sail across the world and see what's out there. And
I can't believe Kingdom Hearts fucking ripped off Dragon Quest VII.
It's never simple and clean, let me tell you. Fuck.
We just got done recording an episode of Do You Remember Macross, where
the Weeb Energy is through the fucking roof.
Big Weeb Energy.
We were making Kingdom Hearts references, so now you guys know our deep dark secret.
Don't walk away. Please, oh baby.
Don't go.
Don't go. And So through heroic legends and Kiefer trying to figure out the mystery of why there are no other islands, they come across this shrine. And in the PS1 game, you do this complicated puzzle that takes like 3 hours. It's a lot quicker on the DS. But anyway, they find this fairy dude who's like, so you've been finding these stone tablets, right? Put this together. And they're there with their friend Maribel, and she's sassy and casts magic. And they put together one of these tablets, and they get transported to another world. And they're like, what's going on? They solve the first mystery, and they come back, and they realize, hey, there's a new island. And then from here, the plot is they're finding pieces of these tablets to assemble for the fairy guy that will take them to new islands to solve their problems in the past, and then the islands come back in the future, in the present, if you will, when they have that problem figured out. So it's so, the character beats with how they play with this work so well. Just for me,
yeah.
Because there's such
Dragon Quest VII, for me at least, I think it might actually be my favorite cast. I've played 5 and I love 5. I've played through most of 4 and they're really good.
Remind me,
really like 11's
I should know
cast.
this because I was just editing this episode literally 4 hours ago.
Mhm.
The one we talked about last episode with the shopkeep sequence, that was 4?
That was the Patreon episode.
You're right, it was the Patreon episode. Support us on Patreon. I
Give
was
them
recording
money.
that. Sorry, I was editing that one 12 hours ago.
Oh, buddy,
But that
are
was
you
4?
yeah, that was 4.
Okay.
Annie,
I
are
was
you
making sure
okay?
I've got my line straight.
I've played and beaten 3 and 4. I've made it through like half of 11, but I decided to stop playing because I'll just get it again on Switch. And I play 7 on and off. I usually play it when I'm not playing anything else because I enjoy that game so much. I want to make it last, even though it's
Gotcha.
already like 80, 90 hours.
Yeah, that time mechanic too. It provides some of that. I'm gonna put some spoilers in here. So Vin Diesel up. Put those spoilers on your car. So this is a spoiler warning. Vin Diesel is coming on through with The Rock. The super combo of Wild Speed is here.
I have
my
not seen
God.
Fast and Furious, so this entire bit is lost on me.
Okay, before
I think Coop just dissociated for 2 minutes.
I might have. So, okay, so really quick, at my job, I work in insurance, so I have to ask, hey, is this vehicle modified or customized? And I always say, because I'm that much of a loon, you're not buying it from Vin Diesel, right? Sometimes it gets a laugh, sometimes it gets a groan. But anyway, with the pathos and the feelings that the time jump gives you, because your natural inclination after you restore a new island is to go see what it looks like in the present. I have a couple examples off the top of my head. So again, big spoilers on your Suzuki Honda Civic. So
Isn't this game like decades old?
yes,
I mean, it is, but
It's
like
still-
no one's played it.
Spoiler warning's fair.
yeah. So there is a whole thing in the past where you save this kingdom from these robots, and there's this scientist who ends up solving it, and he built his own robot or co-ops a robot to control the other robots so the day can be saved. But he hates everybody. He's antisocial. He thinks robots are the best, mainly because of. From what I can tell, either his lover or his sister died in an
robots
accident.
can't break your heart.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so he decides to be alone for the rest of his life. And you're like, you try to talk to him, I try to talk to him, try to break him out of it. It will never work. So he's there in his hut with his robot. You come back hundreds, thousands of years later. You go to that hut. You walk in, because I went there right away. And there's signs saying this is forbidden. Don't go there. But you go in. And you see all the robots. It's all disheveled because he has tons of robots. But you see the one robot he had built that saved the day, Ellie. And she is going back to this machine saying, must get soup for master. You're like, what's going on? Well, this character, his name is Anonymous. He wears glasses. And on the bed, you see a pile of bones with glasses. And
she's trying to make him soup because she's like, his biorhythm is off. He must be sick. I have to get soup for master so he can feel better.
Oh boy.
Yeah.
It's so good. Like, Dragon Quest is, like, super happy and cheery, so when it stops being that, it hits, like, twice as hard.
Yeah. It's... That hit me like... I think I was very close to tearing up when I saw that, because the big thing, I then went on FAQ saying, is there some way to save Anonymous? No. This is...
Oh, that's so
Anonymous
good.
is your Aerith.
Yeah.
That's so good.
There's no way to save him. This is how it's supposed to play out. But that's the main part of that really gets me.
I just wanted to say that I think the thing that is effective about this is that a lot of the story is from you, like, there's not really cutscenes in the traditional sense, like, there will be the occasional cutscene, but a lot of this is just, like, kind of reading different dialogue from different townspeople to give you the broader picture of the status quo. And then when you see the story kind of happen in front of you, it's very simplistic, but, like, because you have all this background knowledge from all the different townspeople and you've done the sleuthing, that you have that much greater of an investment.
That's really cool.
Yeah, because you're discovering this for yourself. And what I love about Dragon Quest so far is, I think my issue with a lot of modern JRPGs, Persona 5 does this a little bit on occasion.
Persona 5 is very notorious for this.
It handholds you the whole way, and it puts you through. They call Final Fantasy 13 the final hallway. JRPGs are very hallway these days, and then they open up a little bit. Dragon Quest doesn't hold your hand, but it's not the best way I can describe it. It's not like you're playing one of the early NES RPGs or Wizardry or Ultima where you have nothing to go on. There's by talking with people, and this happens in Ultima and Wizardry and all that as well. By talking to people, you get some more of a idea of what you're supposed to do. But in there, it's kind of obscure and obfuscated. You just kind of screw around till you find out what you're supposed to do. Here, I love that you talk to people, you put these pieces together for yourself. So it gives you a path, but the path isn't necessarily laid out 100%, which I just kind of, it gets me going. It gets my doki doki, my emotions going, and it makes me happy. It makes me a happy boy. Just because there's so many moments like the anonymous moment that comes up throughout this of something what I love in Japanese literature is and video games and art, and this has gone into a bunch of other games, is we were talking about the journey, not the end. And with Buddhism, this is what I roughly know from my anime, from my weebism. So actual real Buddhists, please correct me on this. Life is suffering, the Buddha said, but it's all about what you do in the middle there, because it's going to end, but it's about the journey, not the fact that you're going to die. And I like, this is like an anime. Like, I remember it's something, a show Dylan and I both love. I don't know if you've seen it yet, Chris. Fooly Cooly.
Oh, yes.
Okay, yeah. Good.
It's exquisite.
At the end of that show, when I was a young Bobo who had watched it on Adult Swim, I wish there was more. We got more, but at the time, at the years before we got that announcement, when I realized for myself, it's about enjoying what we have. It's not about what's coming next. Yeah. And especially in our society now, it's always about, like, hell, we're all guilty of this. Like, we think of, let's look at Fire Emblem, what we're going to be talking about in a minute.
Yeah.
About what the next game that's going to be coming forth, instead of just looking at things that are progressing in our life just as is, you know? It's about the journey, not what's coming next.
Yeah. And that's the thing that, like, we as people, especially us dang millennials, like, we are kind of conditioned to, like, strive forward all the time and, like, always have a plan for what's next. And, like, I'm real guilty of this with, like, you know, hurling myself into a creative career means I have to kind of always be on that grind. And, like, it's important to be able to take a moment and, like, sit back and just be and, like, take stock of where you are and take stock of what you've done and, like, find a way to be content in that. And sometimes you can do that through taking a minute to play a particularly moving moment of a great game.
Yeah.
Let me tell you about those real life adult struggles, because Dragon Quest and other stuff has helped a ton. And talking with y'all motherfuckers about stuff. It's like, yo, being an adult is rough, but on the bright side, there are escapes from that. So, BSG just got real deep up in here.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I think one of the really cool things about Dragon Quest is, in addition to how it tells its story, is like the thematic weight of the stories themselves. Every Dragon Quest game is about family in some way. And there are certain games that are like, you know, honoring your family legacy. There are others that are about trying to live up to your family legacy. And then there, like, one of my favorites is Dragon Quest V, which is about growing up from a child to a teenager to an adult, like a father. And I think there's really, I don't know, like something about what we were talking about really just kind of made me think about that. Just kind of like how there's a sense of forward momentum in trying to live up to expectations that is prevalent in a lot of these games.
And I just had a thought myself that Chris can really speak to on this. Because I haven't played it myself, but hearing you waxing on about God of War 2018, it totally is kind of on this as well, about really what you're talking about with all the sins of the father and Kratos coming to grips with the fact that, yeah, he's a monster, but he has to keep on. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, like, no, exactly.
Yeah.
You want me to talk about God of War 2018, do you? Well, I suppose I can do that. If I had to, like, put a pin in, like, Kratos's desire, if I had to pick out a super objective for him, he wants his son to be a better man than he was.
Yeah.
Like, I personally do not have patience or time to think about God of War 2 or 3, because they were made because God of War 1 made money.
Yep.
God of War 1's story is incredibly well self-contained. God of War 1 ends with Kratos getting his final revenge, realizing that doesn't fucking matter, realizing that in the pursuit of that, he has become a monster, and he has, like, thrown away everything that made him the person that the wife that he lost loved, and he hurls himself into the sea. And the tragedy of that is that his final punishment is, no, you don't get to die, now you're the God of War. And now you have to forever live with the knowledge of what you have done.
I've heard that the PSP games are actually surprisingly good.
I've heard that as well. I can't speak to them. I've never played them. I never owned a PSP.
Yeah, I can't either.
But then God of War 2018, Kratos has, like, finally actually broken himself as free as he can be from his past. And he's still haunted by it. There's a lot of great storytelling beats in that game where they touch on the ways that he is still impacted by all of the terrible things he's done. But the biggest thing in that is you see him trying to be an example for his son and trying to set his son up for success. And, like, there's a great scene right at the very beginning of God of War 2018 where the boy Atreus, Kratos' son, and Kratos fight a troll, and they kill the troll. And Atreus, like, runs up to the body of this troll and starts hacking at it with his knife and screaming about how, like, you can't beat me, I beat you. And Kratos, like, restrains his son. And the performances in that game are incredible, because you can see in the rendering of Kratos and in the motion capture that was done and in the facial capture, but also in the actor's performance, like, this is everything Kratos does not want.
Yeah.
And it's such a little scene, but it does so much for that game. This week's episode is not about God of War 2018. No. I can't make every episode about God of War.
I was going to say, too, on that note with the performances, I love Christopher Judge, who plays Kratos.
He's so good.
I love that man since he was on Stargate SG-1. That's the reason I want to get around that game eventually. But I remember seeing a bit of the documentary about the making of the game, Raising Kratos. And there's a scene, this a bit later in the game, so Kratos gets his chainy things back, but you're watching Christopher Judge doing the motion capture when he's being told he's always be a monster and he can't run out that, and he says, I know. And you look at Christopher Judge and he actually starts crying. And I'm like,
and the follow-up, He's being told this by Athena. The goddess Athena shows up to
Yeah.
like torment Kratos, and she says, "You'll always be a monster." And his response is, "I know, but I'm not your monster anymore." And that is such a great line of dialogue. God of War 2018 is fucking great.
You know, I'd be more likely, after talking about God of War, like to go out to my games plop and grab a copy of God of War today, maybe over other on top of Fire Emblem, but we'll see.
Fair.
Anyway, we were talking about Dragon Quest.
Yes,
Yeah,
but
yeah.
you know what? It's good convo, so
Yeah,
who cares?
absolutely.
Let's go ahead, since I've been talking for a while. Let's hop on into your playbill.
All right.
Yeah. You
See,
know,
it felt like
the
about
shit.
that time. Yeah.
Hop. I'm trying.
Hop sound effects.
Yeah, my spring. Hi, everyone. Welcome to the Playbill. This is the point in the show where we talk about other things that we're doing, other projects that we have going on. We plug our shit a little bit. So, hey, Coop,
Yes.
what the fuck? Who are you? What do you do? Where can people find more about you?
So, as we had alluded to earlier, Mr. Dynamite Dreamboat, Dylan and I, you're Absolute Dreamboat, he's Dynamite Dreamboat.
Oh, I gotcha.
Okay, good to know.
So we do a podcast together called Do You Remember? Nope, I got to get it right. I'm fucking up the name of my own podcast.
There you go.
Front Stage Gaming, am I right?
Yeah.
It's called Dude, You Remember Macross, kind of like Dude, Where's My Car? Ashton Kutcher cursed me. So we talk about, recently we've been talking about the 80s anime, I want to say Dude, Do You Remember Macross again? Man. We're talking about Super Dimension Fortress Macross, and we'll hopefully talk about spin-offs, just the effect, talking about some culture in and outside of how that affects the post-war Japan. Dylan kills this with the eloquent explanations. I just talk about Fred Durst and Dragon Quest a good bit when we're talking.
Thanks, buddy.
It's true. But yeah, we have a lot of fun doing it. We just recorded some, we just aimed for the top with Mr. Absolute Dreamboat over here. So
Howdy.
you'll hear that eventually. So, and we're planning on talking some other stuff too, but that's super fun. So you can check that out at anchor.fm/dude you remember. And that pushes us out, those wonderful folks at Anchor, push us on over to Apple Podcasts, Spotify, pretty much anywhere you'd want to listen to us. So if you like us, go ahead and give us a listen. Hey, maybe you can give us a star or two, whatever. Just we're happy to have you by. And then
Hit me with those 1 and 2 star reviews.
Yeah.
Please. Bury me.
I expected to hear about giant robots, but they talked about Fred Durst and Final Fantasy VII all day. What the hell?
We are notoriously bad at staying on topic.
Yep.
But you didn't hear that.
No, I didn't hear anything. So yeah, and we're also on Facebook and Twitter. Twitter specifically at Dude You Remember, and then /Dude You Remember on Facebook. Yeah, and that is pretty much my plug. The only other thing I could think of that I did mention in the intro is I used to do theater stuff, and I studied it in college, but I decided it wasn't for me. But I did tech stuff, but that's it. That's all I got to say.
And
Hi.
where can people find you specifically?
Find me specifically. Well, you can find me at 123 Main Street in Phoenix, Arizona, 49879.
Just
Actually, no. At Rider Strike on Twitter.
Hey, I feel like you guys who dox people, you've been putting in a lot of work. Let me make this one easy for y'all.
So now here's my social security number and my mother's maiden name.
There we go.
So yes, that is all for me. So yeah, I'm a dude.
And you remember.
You remember.
Hey, Dylan,
Yes.
you were in Dude You Remember. I was on the recent one. We're also both together on another podcast. What's that about?
Oh, well, there's this lovely show, actual play podcast called The Unexplored Cast, where we play with a bunch of friends from college. The previous season was kind of supernatural happenings in rural Ohio, but this upcoming season we're looking in space, and I think it's going to be very exciting. Chris is going to be a regular on the show. I will make the occasional appearance. as I try to work my life out.
The real mood.
Same.
Yeah, I'm really excited to play this. I only sat in when everyone was character creating, but I am really excited to see what y'all do.
It's going to be a great time.
And if you want to check them out, you can find them on Twitter at unexploredcast, or you can go to unexploredcast.libsyn.com.
Yeah. One other thing I want to plug right now, because it's actually like coming out shortly. There's a great show called Unwell, a Midwestern Gothic mystery. Speaking of ooky spooky shit in rural Ohio, it's a phenomenal audio drama. They're doing some incredible things audio design wise, and like with the way that the episodes are put together story structure wise. It's a great story, and I was lucky enough to get to be involved in a couple of episodes. I had one throwaway line in episode 11, which released as you're hearing this 2 weeks ago, and I'm also in the final scene of the season, which should be being released shortly, either this week or next week when this episode comes out. It's a great show. It was super fun to record. The scene I got to do was a great time, and feeds into a recent typecasting thing I've been finding where I get to play people who get ripped limb from limb. So, look forward to that audio nightmare.
Hey, at least you didn't get typecast as cartoon dogs for the rest of your life. So
yeah, there we go. But yeah, you can find them on Twitter at Unwell Podcast. They're also on iTunes, Spotify, Stitcher, wherever you get your podcasts. Unwell, a Midwestern Gothic mystery. Check them out.
Also, I forgot to ask, are you feeling better, Chris?
Am I feeling better?
Yeah, you just said you were unwell.
And also, if you want to be fungally responsible for gags like that, you can check out our Patreon, patreon.com/bsgpod. It is currently at a level where it is covering all of our expenses, which is incredible, and just never-ending thanks to all of our patrons for helping us not lose money making this show. And to anyone who likes our show and is not a patron, head over to patreon.com/bsgpod, check out the reward tiers, check out what is on offer there. And if you like what we're doing, that is a great way to support us, and every cent that we make goes back into making the podcast better and making our production value better, potentially even making more shows if we get to that level. And, it's just wildly appreciated. So thank you all to everyone who is a patron, and if you want to be a patron, that's how you do it.
You're welcome.
Yeah, Coop is a patron, and we love him forever.
Just a disclaimer, I am a patron to them. I love them. They're my friends, so I give them the money so they can have a website.
And we love you for it. I don't think there's anything else to plug. This episode will probably be a long one just because talking with Coop is fun, but let's dive back in. On the other side of the playbill, was there anything else y'all wanted to talk about Dragon Quest wise before we get to?
Yeah, I was just gonna say a couple
Nation?
things about. Well, I guess as I segue into Fire Emblem, last couple things I'll say about Dragon Quest is, and I think this is more emphasized in some games than others. There is a very nice, consistent sense of characters expressing themselves mechanically, as well as through flavor text and party dialogue and stuff like that. Mm-hmm. So using Dragon Quest VII as an example, you start with three main characters. You have Kiefer, Maribel, and whatever you name your main character. I think the default name is Arus. That's Arus for those who are curious. What I really like about it is, so let's look at Arus. He's the main character. You're the one controlling him, so he's the one who's helping everybody out. He's talking to every NPC. So that is expressed with the default skills he learned are healing spells. He heals people. He buffs people. He's a very he's a support type hero. Maribel she's the daughter of the mayor of the town that Arus lives in. So she's fun, but she's also kind of bratty. She's one to get into. She's confrontational.
Yep.
So she has like very offensive black magic. And that's fun. And then you have Kiefer, he's the rebellious son of the king. So he should be learning and studying how to rule the kingdom of one island. But instead he dreams of adventure, and he sneaks out of the castle to hang out with Arus. And whenever you talk to a woman NPC, he's like, "Oh man, she purty." He's kind of the Brock of the group, in all honesty. And so he's the heavy hitter. He's the slowest of the three. And so you kind of got like a sense of these characters' personalities not only through party dialogue, which you can choose to talk to your party members after. You can do it at any point in the game, but sometimes they'll have something to say when you talk to a specific NPC.
Yep.
And that is another way that you can get a taste of their personality without actually like going into a cutscene. But their personalities are also expressed mechanically, so there's this nice idea of you can check it out when you want to. Other games do other things, but we've talked about Dragon Quest long enough, I think.
I will say one quick thing, because you deep think it. You're more galaxy brain than I. But another thing, I totally when I could give Maribel the whip, I did, and that totally fits her character because she is.
Okay, let's dig up, because I get what Coop is saying.
Yeah.
The whip weapon in Dragon Quest is very useful because it's a multi-target attack. So we talked about how Maribel is like a very offensive-minded character. So the whip is actually a very offensive-minded weapon because you can take out groups of enemies all at once.
Okay.
And it's snapping and biting just like she is.
Yeah, it's also like it also fits her personality in a way that's not weird. So please slow your roll, Chris and audience.
Not in that way. No. And then you get the boomerang, and then Broth has that. But I love wolf boys who ride on giant-sized wolves. I'll take that.
Yeah,
but
that's
anyway.
a later party member. He's also really cool.
He's a cool boy.
So yeah, I guess to segue to Fire Emblem now. Something Fire Emblem's really good at doing that as well. In a lot of the older, more classic Fire Emblems, when you recruit a party member, they will join the party, and they have a fixed class. It usually fits their personality, so you have a character. In the original Fire Emblem, your starting characters are Marth, the main character, Sheeta, his not girlfriend, but totally girlfriend. She's a Pegasus Knight. You have Jagan, who is Marth's mentor. He's a stronger unit, but because he's old, his stats don't grow as quickly.
Oh, that's really cool.
So mechanically, he actually gets left behind by the younger, more youthful units. You have an archer Gordon. You have a knight. So anyway, you have a variety of characters, but the thing that the original games kind of hammered home was, this is the character, they are of this class and of this type, and you will utilize their strengths and weaknesses, and each character has like their own different growth rates for different stats. So it's kind of this idea of like, this is their personality, this is what they're good at and bad at, and this is how you work with that.
Yeah.
And I'll segue that into the latest Fire Emblem game in a second, but I just wanted to say another thing that I really love about Fire Emblem in terms of storytelling is that it's very, or at least old school Fire Emblem was very hands-off in regards to that. Usually you'll get like a little blurb that's like a bit of a history lesson about the region the party is in, and then there might be a cutscene where like they get into a kerfuffle with a local bandit, or maybe it's the general of an enemy army.
A kerfuffle.
A kerfuffle.
Just kind of on that note, too, when it comes to getting characters, because I played a bit of Shadow Dragon, the remake of the first game. That game relies so much on with new party members, too. When you get them, you have to seek them out and make sure the right unit speaks to them so they can join your party, and also make sure they don't die. And
that's kind of how you get that new character's backstory. You're like, all right, so this person is associated with this character. They know each other because of blank. That's really all the text you get. So it's a game that's like more big picture, more broad strokes. Like I was saying earlier, you're just kind of given a little blurb about the region. You have a little bit of context for why you're fighting, the army that you're fighting. And then any other story that you're looking for is delivered to you by townspeople that you rescue.
And just on that same note, it feels... just going back on the character thing really quick, it feels like... people are going to hate this term, but the modern Fire Emblem, waifu emblem, it kind of it kind of goes more to, hey, you have these characters, you don't really seek them out, they just kind of come to you, which is fine. But it gives you a little more effort it gives you a little more bang for your effort the classic way. I'm not saying, oh, this is new and bad. I'm just pointing out the difference there.
No,
Yeah,
but
it is.
I get what you're saying. Like, it feels almost like a formality at this point. It's like you get new party members because, of course, you get new party members, especially in a franchise that utilizes permadeath.
Yeah. And, the last console Fire Emblem games, Path of Radiance and Radiant Dawn, Path of Radiance at least kind of played in that space. It was like it had one foot in the old school version and one foot in the more modern take on how characters come into your party. In Path of Radiance, there are some characters that they just come to you and join your party as the story progresses. There are others that you have to do that point of, like, remembering, like, there's one that I remember where there's a mission in the swamp, and if you, like, a few levels prior, one of your characters, Marcia, a Pegasus Knight, is talking about, like, God, I'm so tired of my, like, idiot brother getting in trouble with mercenaries. And then you get to this mission in the swamp, and there's a guy on a horse with pink hair. Marcia is a Pegasus Knight with pink hair. And there's a brief cutscene he has where he's like, man, my sister was right. I need to stop gambling, or something like that.
Yeah.
So it's pretty there for you, but you still have to remember, like, oh, this is a thing I need to do. I better make sure Marcia gets over to him before he runs into my axe-wielding dervish of death Boyd and gets completely fucking bodied.
Yeah, man, fucking Boyd, I love him.
And so there was, like, been a transition from one to the other. And now that's actually a good segue into Three Houses, because Three Houses plays a slightly different game with how you get new characters.
Just kind of reinvents the whole franchise, but, like,
it's really cool.
I really dig it. The last couple things I want to say about Fire Emblem, sorry, old school Fire Emblem, I guess I should say, is that as the series came into America, I feel like that was kind of the first big focus in, like, changing the way the stories were told, where it has kind of more of the first American Fire Emblem gave me, like, a Saturday morning cartoon kind of vibe. Like, it reminded me of watching Pokemon or Yu-Gi-Oh! Or something.
Sure.
Where, there was a lot more dialogue between characters, at least in the early game. It had a bit more of an episodic format. By the time we reach Fire Emblem Awakening, I haven't played a lot of Fire Emblem Awakening. I borrowed, like, a friend's copy and played, like, 4 levels, and I really liked it.
Yeah, I will say I have not touched
Awakening
any of the handheld Fire Emblem games since, like, the Game Boy Advance era.
So, as someone who's played Awakening, has played like a good half of them, I would. Fates is okay. It goes too waifu for you.
That's why I've played more of Fates than I have Awakening, and I would agree with that.
Awakening's probably the most balanced of the new skew of Fire Emblem games. I've heard good things about Echoes. Chris and I have another mutual friend who gets giffled and riffled on occasion. And he played through Fates, and he said, not Fates, Echoes. And he says it's really good, especially with throwing out the weapon triangle and going back to the classic. Because I think what happens in Three Houses takes a lot from Echoes. He says that game gets hard as hell.
It is a remake of an NES game, so that makes sense.
True.
Awakening and Fates is what I have more experience with, so I should really just say Fates. Fates and Awakening both put you, the player, you're your own self-insert. And you are a character, and there's a greater emphasis was put on support conversations, which have been around since Fire Emblem 6, but now in Awakening, which I believe is Fire Emblem 13, something like that.
That sounds about right. Wait a second. If the main character is you, how does this relate to Persona 4?
Shut up. Pretty heavily.
Just continue. I couldn't resist myself.
There's a greater emphasis put on support conversations, which in Fire Emblem, if you have a support with another character, which means if these two characters are on good terms, they will give each other bonuses in battle. And it's really cool, but a greater emphasis in starting with Awakening was on the marriage mechanic, where these characters will marry and then their kids will show up and fight from the future. Don't worry about it. It's cool because they're taking ideas from previous Fire Emblem games. This was done back in, like, 1992 or whenever Fire Emblem 4 came out. But a lot of that character kind of gets removed because almost every male character can talk to every female character and have some different combination of offspring. And offspring sounds so clinical, that felt gross. Child. And
Spawn.
because that can happen, the writing kind of suffers because there's not really a consideration for what region is this character from, what are they doing. It's just like, I like this character's personality quirk, and I like this character's personality quirk, and I think if I mash them together, that is going to be a fun thing for me to watch. And that's fine. Chase your sky. Let people enjoy things.
Yeah.
But, like, I did start to feel a little alienated from this series because so much focus and emphasis was put on these characters with, like, one or two personality quirks flirting with each other. That's what I came... Like, the storytelling that I admire about the old games was kind of getting lost. So now we can transition to Fire Emblem Three Houses, which, as of this recording, came out 2 days ago.
Yeah, by the time you hear this, it'll have been out for a week and a half.
Yeah.
Dylan and I have both been playing it. It does a lot of things, and bear in mind, all of the opinions I'm about to express, I have played the game for a total of like 5 or 6 hours, which is not much of it.
Yeah, I am barely into Chapter 3.
The conceit of the game is that your main character, your sort of self-insert character, is a mercenary. He's the son of a prominent former captain of like these holy knights, and he is sort of roped into being a professor at its warrior Hogwarts. And you become the head of one of the titular 3 houses, each of which is allied with one of the 3 major like ruling powers on this continent. I'm not going to go super into like the story because I don't really know much of it yet.
We are still learning it as we play.
But the main conceit of the game and what's very different about this game is it's broken up into months. And every month is then broken up into different weeks. And each month you have like a story mission that you have to complete. But for the rest of the month, you have days off that you can spend wandering the grounds of the university and talking to your students and talking to the students of other houses and like having dinner with the students and gardening with the students. And so it's very Persona.
Something I really liked about Fire Emblem that I guess is kind of lost when you have your own self-insert avatar is in previous Fire Emblem games, I liked kind of being this omnipotent coach for all the different units and kind of guiding them.
Yeah.
And there was kind of this sense of me being not part of the team, but me being the one who's like kind of gluing it all together. And while that is present in Fire Emblem Awakening and Fire Emblem Fates, being a much more active participant in the story and kind of, playing optimally means I have to pair myself up with someone. It always kind of felt weird to me because I don't want to be part of the story. I want to see the story unfold.
Yeah.
And something I really like about this game is that even though you have an avatar character, you do have a self-insert character. A lot of his role in the story is in some ways reduced. You are the professor of a class. And so you're kind of, it's kind of giving me back that idea that I am a coach kind of managing a team.
Yeah.
And
I will say I have heard that the character that you play as takes on a much more major role in the story later on.
Oh, I definitely believe it. But he's definitely given a lot of focus.
Yeah, but it's still like I agree with you. The way that they're treating him as much more of a like he's a character, but he's also what the sort of omnipotent player used to be.
Yeah.
I also like I'm really enjoying. There's an element of like Persona style social links. You have to go and like you can have dinner with students from your class or from other classes. You take the time to like actually teach. The weeks are spent with you instructing students, and how many instances of instruction you can give to a particular student is based on their motivation, which is based partially on how well they do in the missions and partially on how much time you spend with them. And if you like do favors for them around the university, they do, or the monastery is what it's called. There's an element where like if you spend time with students that aren't in your class and build up your bonds with them, and also you have features in your class that they like, you can recruit students from other classes to your class.
I still
and,
haven't
like,
figured
grow
out
your
how
roster.
to do that.
I haven't successfully done it, but like it's a combination of like bond with them, which you can build up by spending time with them on the events, but also you can like request their help on missions for like one-off things.
Yeah.
But then also, so like you need to both have a relationship with them and be offering things on your class that they're interested in.
Wow.
And then you can recruit them that way, which is, again, a really cool way of building in. It needs to be said, these characters are, for the most part, pretty dang shallow.
Yeah.
Like, it's a huge roster of characters, so most of them have, like, 1 or 2 personality traits. But because of the way that the support system works and because of the way that you get to, like, as people become closer, you get to watch little scenes with them, and the voice acting helps with this a ton. Even though they're very, like, fairly two-dimensional characters, the interactions they have with each other feel very real and feel genuine in a way that I'm really fucking impressed by, having seen a pretty good number of the at least C-tier support conversations
They
so
have
far.
really good chemistry, and I think it's
Yeah.
helped by the fact that, I think, with the exception of whoever you choose to pair your avatar with, and before people get squicky about that, there's a 5-year time skip. By the time that happens, everyone's well into their 20s. Everything is platonic. Like,
Yeah.
these relationships you're building they feel more familial.
Yeah, and
than...
there are a couple characters who are a little more flirty, but like it never feels like actual flirting.
I've seen images of the one lady teacher who I don't know her name. And
Okay, yeah,
that's-
she's very,
the best.
I
she's
love
super
her.
forward, but it's
She's-
again, it's played as kind of a gag.
I love that.
Yeah. I honestly, I think she's great. I love her.
For the audience, there are a couple of other teachers, one of whom is a woman named Manuela, who is like, all of her conversations with you are about like, so I went out on a date with this like absolute stud muffin of a night, but I don't know if it's going anywhere.
I broke
and, like,
up
her
with him
hitting
because
on
he insulted
you.
my room.
It's so fucking good. And again, it's like one of her 2 character traits, but like, and a lot of this comes down to they took the time to like fully have all of this huge cast fully voice acted.
I think, there's
Yeah.
that,
And that
then
helps
also
a
on top
ton.
of that, I want to say that, like, yes, the characters themselves, they have like 1 or 2 personality quirks, and that's about it. But I think, like, there's also the amount of consideration that went into, like, this character is part of this noble house in this region that also that defines how they interact. Chris, I texted you this when we were playing the game. If you go to the library, you can actually read up on all the noble families. And something interesting I learned in the library was that Edelgard, the house, the head of the Black Eagle house, apparently her family, which is the head of this empire, apparently there was an uprising like some 10 or 20 years before the start of the game, where, yes, she is the daughter of the empire, she's the future empress, but that doesn't mean a lot because that has kind of been reduced to a figurehead position, and the real power lies with another family.
Oh boy!
And those 2 characters are rivals.
Oh yeah,
at the
that's
school.
what, Ferdinand? Is that his name?
Yeah, I think it's Ferdinand.
The redheaded dude who's the
So, like,
prime minister.
I think there's a
family.
little bit more under the surface that we're not giving the game credit for.
Yeah, I mean, see also in the Golden Deer, which is the house that Dylan and I both chose, they are tied to a political entity called the Leicester Alliance, which is essentially like a noble oligarchy. Like it's a collection of noble families that rule over like a largely mercantile kind of nation. And the head of the house, Claude, is the heir to the foremost house in this
fun
sort
fact, did you know that Claude, he wouldn't have been the heir, but the previous heir died, and so they found his sister.
Oh, I'm
who had a
aware.
child?
That's what I was going to get to.
Yeah.
He is the heir to the ruling house, which is what you know going in. So there's another character in the house named Lawrence, who is real snooty, like real proud of himself for being a lord. One of the things that every character has like a card that has like their likes and dislikes, and one of his dislikes is anything unbefitting of the nobility.
Wow.
But their C-level support conversation is Lauren's basically saying, look, you are nothing. You were found to fill this void. You weren't raised by the nobility. You don't belong with the nobility. And I'm going to prove to everyone what a fraud you are. And it's such a good scene because it lays out, like...
Oh, shit.
It doesn't establish anything... Like, again, these characters are still very cookie-cutter, but the way that they play these different, very arch characters against each other is really, really inspired in a really cool way. And
Yeah.
like I'm enjoying the hell out of this game, and I'm very excited to see where it goes as I very slowly make my way through it.
It's changed a lot from what I enjoyed about the old games, but it's also it's taking what I didn't like about the newer games, which I want to throw out just so people don't call me an elitist. I'm sure they're fine games, they just weren't for me.
Yeah, and I will say I have not played any Fire Emblem that has come out more recently than Radiant Dawn.
Right.
Until now, which was 12 years ago.
Yeah, no, this game is taking the issues I had about the latest games, not including Echoes, which is a remake of one of the games on the NES. It's taking those things, and I think it's refining them. Like, it's taking the focus on characters and with like very stock archetypes, but like it's making it work, and it's so exciting to finally play.
Yep. And then the way that there's that joke that Coop you made earlier about like Fire Emblem being the waifu engine. But the fact that this is a game where like if you stumble upon a character that you really like, whether it's like their design or their personality or whatever it is, there's mechanical benefits for you spending more time with that character. And like as much as that leans into the Fire Emblem waifu stereotype, it's cool. It's a cool way of like turning a preference that you might have for whatever aspect of a character and allowing you to pursue that and see in-game mechanical benefits for it.
Waifu mechanics matter.
And like, I think that's cool. I think that's that's a creative tack that Fire Emblem has always been good at, but the way they're engaging with it here is really kind of inspired.
There is an idea that you, as the leader of this group, are bringing out the best in all of your units.
Yep.
You're seeing the potential in them, and you're dragging it out of them.
I love it.
And it
hard
is
working
done
guts,
in a way.
am I right?
Hard working guts.
Yeah, hard work.
Listen to Do You Remember Macross?
Do You Remember Macross to know what we're talking about. Yeah, I know we're about. It's about time to wrap this up, but I just wanted to kind of get my last couple gushes out.
Who knows? Maybe we'll do, if this proves fruitful enough as we're playing through it, we might do like a post-mortem episode on Three Houses.
I would like that.
Look at like, it would be kind of fun to do an episode where we look at like one game and be like, all right, here's what this game is doing, here's what the game's story is going for, here's what the mechanics are, how do they all work together? That could be fun in the future.
Of course, this is only going to be us talking about the Golden Deer, because each house has an 80-hour campaign.
Yeah, we ain't crazy. But
so if I end up picking this up today and I play as waifu squad, I'll let you know. But something I did want to figure out with all these changes you're talking about for Three Houses, I think there's an influence as to why, especially given we've mentioned Persona so much.
Yeah.
So
okay, that is the last thing we should touch on.
Yeah,
I agree.
So a couple years back on the for faded Wii U, there was a crossover game called Tokyo
Mirage
Sessions Sharp FE. Yeah.
Oh, have you not heard of? Well, I mean, no. I guess I don't know why you would have heard of this.
It's basically Persona 4.5.
Okay.
And it takes best way I can describe it is the personas in this game are Fire Emblem characters, mostly the Awakening set, and some classic characters.
And
that's weird, but I'm into it.
I remember at the time everyone was pissed because when the Wii U was launching, they said like, Shin Megami Tensei Fire Emblem crossover game happening, and everyone had like wild ideas and expectations of what that could manifest as. And there was like radio silence for like 4 years.
Yep.
And then when we finally saw the game, it wasn't really Shin Megami Tensei or Fire Emblem so much as it was Persona, but it was Persona with like an emphasis on idol culture.
Yep.
And everyone was just kind of deflated. But a friend actually started playing that, and he's told me like mechanically the game is very solid.
Okay.
They incorporate the weapon triangle in some like really smart ways. It's actually really cool. I kind of wish they ported it to the Switch.
I hope they do that too. Our Giffles friend I mentioned earlier, I went in with him on a Wii U copy of that game and never got around to playing it. I want to because that game needs to get ported. That's going to be like a Dreamcast hidden gem for that, because let's be honest, the Wii U kind of feels like the modern Dreamcast. But there's so many, let's just say, social links for ease of use. So many of that in Sharp FE that I feel that I bet you I'm not going to make I'm going to put like a 5 yen bet that the intelligence systems team probably took a hard comb through Sharp FE. It's like, hey, using our license, we'll use some of these ideas. And then Persona 5 came out, and everybody and their grandma loved it. Unless their grandma was very for the current government, that might be some issues. But yeah, so they took those ideas, like Persona 5 and Persona series. You could start seeing with Sharp FE that has had an influence. And it would be dumb of Intelligent Systems not to take that ball and go running with it.
Yeah.
So I blame Persona for everything.
Yeah.
That's fair.
I guess this is what I wanted to say was, in Persona, Persona 3, 4, and 5 specifically, it is so much about, like, you and, like, a single given party member that you hang out with. And Fire Emblem Three Houses puts so much emphasis on the squad. You're not a student hanging out with one of your fellow students. You are a professor who is, you are nudging your students together and trying to get them to make peace with each other and become a stronger unit because of it.
And the reward that you get, so you have a professor level that increases as you do tasks around the monastery and complete quests and, like, do the activities. And the reward for increased professor levels is more energy pips to spend on doing things with the students and to spend on being able to teach more students in the weekly lessons. So the reward for doing a good job is more ability to spend time with more students. And that's, again, really cool mechanical and gameplay interaction there. Mechanical and story interaction there.
I am so happy from what you've told me that there's no cat in this game that tells me it's time to go to sleep.
No, the cat does not tell you to go to sleep. Instead, when you run out of activity points in the exploring the monastery section, it plays the original Fire Emblem theme on the school bells, and I fucking love it.
That's amazing!
Yep. You spend your last point and you just hear bong, 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 and it's so good. I love it.
Ho's mad.
So this turned into us gushing about this cool game, but hopefully it will maintain this momentum as we play through it, and we might return to it for like a post-mortem. This episode is going to be extra long.
Yeah. Off camera, we talked about Gita Jackson's Kotaku review of Fire Emblem Three Houses.
Yep.
And I think if what she wrote down is any indication, that momentum keeps going throughout most of the campaign.
I'm real excited. But we've eaten up a little bit extra of your time this week, so thank you very much for listening to Backstage Gaming. It's been great having you. It's been also great having our friend Coop.
Thank you.
Once again, check out Dude, You Remember Macross. It's a great show. I'm going to be in a couple episodes of it, but the backlog has been very fun. I've fallen a little behind because life is hard, but it's really fun.
Sense.
And if you have any interest in mecha anime or Macross specifically, it's definitely worth a listen. Coop, one more time, where can people find that?
You can find that at anchor.fm/dudyremember, all your preferred podcast locations, and at Twitter, Facebook @/dudyremember.
There we go.
Yes.
And yeah, this is Backstage Gaming. We are on iTunes, Spotify, Stitcher, wherever you get your podcasts. And if you like what you listen to, if you like what we have to say, if you think we're interesting, consider leaving a rating, a review, telling your friends, telling your family, telling your students if you're a teacher at a monastery for noble spoiled brats. Your mailman. Maybe your mailman. Mailmen walk around a lot. They need podcasts. I don't know where I'm going with this.
I don't either.
We also have a website. It's bsgpod.com. That's where you can get our episodes straight from the source. You can also contact us via a form we have there. It's got bios from me and Dylan. It's got everything you need if you're a real diehard Backstage Gaming fan. And we know you're out there. We know.
Thank you, Dakota.
What?
I was shouting out to our one diehard fan, Dakota.
No, we have another, and he's a guy that my girlfriend goes to school with that I've interacted with all of twice. But he has apparently made references to recent episodes when talking to her at school.
Wow.
So, you know what? I love you, Leon. Leon, you're a real one.
Wait a second.
Are you keeping this in here, or are you?
Fuck yeah.
Is his full name Leon Scott Kennedy?
No, unfortunately.
So.
But Leon, you a real one. We appreciate you. Anyway, Dylan, social media me.
Okay. Thank you for listening to Backstage Gaming. If you want to check us out on social media, you can find us on Facebook, Twitter. Our handle is @BSG_cast, and you can also give us a listen on YouTube. And if you like or dislike what we're talking about, maybe you want to talk about Fire Emblem, that'd be cool. You should use the hashtag BSGPod. Also, huge thanks to our friend Brendan French for providing us with our key art. If you like what he's doing, you can check him out at brennan-french.squarespace.com. That is BRENNEN-French.squarespace.com. You can also check him out at instagram.com/BrennanFrenchArts.
Oh yeah, you should also give some love to our friend BioQuery. He is the musician behind our theme song, Dot Sound Radio Volume 1, Instrumentality. He is an electronic music creator and producer. He's out in LA. He's got a couple EPs out right now. One of his solo work called Posthuman Angst, and another that he produced for a bunch of hip-hop artists from around the country called Links Volume 1. They're both phenomenal, and if you want to listen to him, which you totally should, you can do that by searching for BioQuery, that's BIOQUERY on Spotify, or by going to his SoundCloud, soundcloud.com/BioQuery. And one more time, just want to shout out our patrons. What up, Coop? And remind you that we have a Patreon. It's patreon.com/BSGpod. It is what we're using to support the overhead costs of the show, and going forward as it develops more money, if it does, if we're so lucky, we'll be putting that back into the show to up the production value, get new equipment, maybe start new projects, all that kind of stuff. So if you like what we're doing and you want to show us your support in that way, patreon.com/BSGpod is the way to do that. That is all I have. One more big thank you to Coop for joining us. Follow him on Twitter @WriterStrike. And
that is RIDER Strike.
Yeah. And I think that about does it. Anything else from you two?
I had a thought here.
Oh boy.
Why Brennan, if he has just like a individual Tumblr or Facebook or whatever, it's probably taken already, but he should totally go @French Toast. And then I also had another dumb thought. So you're talking about BioQuery's Links album where